Claire Ashford's hands shook as she struck the match. The flame trembled in the darkness of her Boston bedroom, casting shadows across the cradle that hadn't been touched in 2 years. Inside lay a charred wooden horse, the only thing left of her son. She'd carried it across half the country, unable to cry, unable to let go. Tonight, she would burn it. Tonight, she would finally feel something. But as the match died, a telegram slipped from her bag. Teaching position, Wyoming Territory. Children need you. She crumpled it, then smoothed it flat. Maybe running was easier than burning. If this story already has your heart, subscribe to Wild West Love Stories and follow Claire's journey to the very end. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far our stories travel. Now, let's go back to where it all began. Wyoming Territory, September 1877. The stagecoach lurched to a stop and Claire Ashford fell forward, catching herself against the wooden frame. Her carpet bag tumbled open, spilling 2 years of running across the dusty floor. A widow's black dress, she refused to wear a Bible she couldn't read, and letters from Boston she'd never answer. "End of the line, ma'am," the driver called down. "McCallister Ranch. You sure this is the place?" Claire stepped into the September wind. The prairie stretched endlessly, gold grass rippling like a restless ocean. In the distance stood a ranch house, weathered and gray, with a barn that leaned slightly east. No smoke rose from the chimney. No children played in the yard. Nothing moved except a single rope swing creaking in the wind. "This is it," she said, though her voice carried no conviction. The driver handed down her trunk, tipped his hat, and drove away without another word. The dust settled. The silence pressed in. Claire stood alone on the road, carpet bag in one hand, teaching certificate in the other, a piece of paper that said she was qualified to shape young minds when she couldn't even hold her own together. She walked toward the house. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her boots crunched on the dry earth, and she thought of another sound, her son's laugh, high and bright, before the fire swallowed it whole. She'd promised herself she wouldn't think of him out here. Wyoming was supposed to be far enough away. It wasn't. A man appeared on the porch, tall, broad-shouldered hat pulled low. He didn't move, just watched her approach like she was a ghost he'd been expecting. When she reached the steps, he finally spoke. "You the teacher?" "Claire Ashford." She extended her hand. He looked at it for a moment, then shook it once, firm and quick. "Jake McCallister, you're late. The stage was delayed in—" "Don't matter now." He turned toward the door. "School's a mile east. I'll take you there in the morning." "Mr. McCallister." "Just Jake." She followed him inside. The house was sparse, table, chairs, fireplace, nothing more. No photographs on the walls, no curtains on the windows. It felt like a place where someone had decided to stop living and just exist instead. Claire knew that feeling. "You'll stay here tonight," Jake said. "Storm's coming. Road won't be safe. I don't want to impose. You already are." The words hit like a slap. Claire set down her bag, keeping her face neutral. She'd learned in Boston that showing hurt only invited more of it. Jake moved to the fireplace and began building a fire. His movements were precise, methodical, like a man who'd done this 1,000 times alone. Claire watched his hands, scarred, capable, the kind that could break a horse or mend a fence or hold a woman close in the dark. She looked away quickly. "Is it just you here?" she asked. "No." The single word hung in the air. Jake didn't elaborate. He struck a match, and the kindling caught. Orange light filled the room, and for the first time, Claire noticed something on the mantel, a small wooden bird carved with incredible detail. She moved closer. "Don't touch that." She pulled her hand back. "I'm sorry. It's beautiful." It was my wife's. Was. Past tense. Claire understood. "How long ago?" she asked quietly. 5 years. He stood brushing ash from his hands. She left, took a train to Denver, and never came back. I'm sorry. Don't be. Some women aren't made for this life. He looked at her, then really looked at her, his gray eyes sharp. You married Miss Ashford? I was. She met his gaze. Widowed. 2 years. Something shifted in his expression, not sympathy, but recognition. The look of someone who'd also learned that grief doesn't heal, it just becomes furniture you arrange your life around. Children, he asked. The question stopped her breath. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, no. It wasn't a lie. The dead don't count. Jake nodded slowly. Then you won't understand Lily. Lily, as if summoned, a small shape appeared in the doorway. A girl, maybe 7 years old, stood barefoot in a faded nightgown. Her dark hair fell in tangles past her shoulders. She didn't look at Claire, didn't look at anything really. Her eyes fixed on the middle distance, focused on something only she could see. Lily, Jake said gently. Say hello to Miss Ashford. The girl said nothing. She hummed instead, a low, tuneless sound that raised the hair on Claire's neck. It was the sound of someone trying to fill silence with anything but words. Claire knelt slowly, keeping her distance. Hello, Lily. The girl stopped humming, her head tilted like a bird listening for predators. Then she began to sing, soft and clear. Shenandoah, I long to see you. Away, you rolling river. Claire's vision blurred. That song, that specific song. She'd sung it to her son every night before bed. She'd sung it the night before the fire when he'd asked for one more lullaby, just one more. She does that, Jake said, his voice cutting through the memory. Sings instead of talking, has ever since her mother left. Claire blinked hard, forcing herself back. She doesn't speak at all. Not a word in 5 years. Doctor in Fort Banner says it's hysterical mutism. Says she'll talk when she's ready. He paused. She ain't ready. Lily drifted closer still, not looking directly at Claire. She reached out one small hand and touched the blue ribbon tied in Claire's hair, the only spot of color Claire had allowed herself since Boston. The girl's fingers were gentle, reverent. Blue? Lily sang softly. Like Mama's eyes, like the sky before the storm. Lily. Jake's voice was firm. Go back to bed. But the girl didn't move. Instead, she pressed something into Claire's palm, a folded piece of paper. Then she turned and disappeared back into the shadows of the hallway. Claire unfolded the paper. It was a drawing done in charcoal, a woman with long hair standing beside a small girl. Between them, a bird in flight. At the bottom, in careful, shaky letters, Mama. Her throat tightened. Jake. Don't read into it, he said quickly. She draws strangers, draws birds, draws her mother, even though she can't remember her face. He took the paper from her hands and set it on the mantel beside the wooden bird. It doesn't mean anything. But Claire saw the way he looked at the drawing, the way his jaw clenched. It meant something to him. I should sleep, she said. Down the hall, second door. She gathered her bag and moved toward the hallway, but stopped at the threshold. Jake. Yeah, thank you, for letting me stay. He didn't answer, just turned back to the fire shoulders, tense, a man alone in a room that had been empty for far too long. The bedroom was small bed washstand, nothing else. Claire set her bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the mattress. The springs creaked. Through the thin walls, she heard Jake moving in the main room, heard the clink of a bottle, the scrape of a chair. She pulled out the charred wooden horse and held it in both hands. Her son's name was carved into the base Thomas. She traced the letters with her thumb, waiting for tears that never came. 2 years, and she still couldn't cry. The fire had burned through her house, her family, her ability to feel anything except this vast, echoing emptiness. The doctors in Boston had called it melancholia. They'd prescribed rest fresh air prayer. None of it worked. So she'd applied for teaching positions out west, places so far from home that maybe the memories couldn't follow. But they did. They always did. A sound pulled her back, singing soft and distant. Lily's voice drifted through the walls. "Oh, Shenandoah, I love your daughter. Away, you rolling river." Claire closed her eyes. In the darkness, she saw Thomas's face. Saw him reaching for her from inside the flames. Saw herself frozen at the door, too terrified to move, too weak to save him. No. She pushed the memory down hard. Wyoming was supposed to be different. Wyoming was supposed to be safe. She wrapped the wooden horse in a handkerchief and tucked it back into her bag. Tomorrow, she would start teaching. Tomorrow, she would be useful. Tomorrow, she would pretend she was whole. But tonight, in this strange house with a broken man and his silent daughter, she let herself admit the truth. She'd come to Wyoming not to teach, but to disappear. Morning came cold and gray. Claire woke to the smell of coffee and frying bacon. She dressed quickly. Simple brown dress hair pulled back, no ribbon, and followed the sounds to the kitchen. Jake stood at the stove, his back to her. Lily sat at the table, drawing in a leather-bound book. Neither acknowledged her entrance. "Morning," Claire said. "Coffee's on the stove." Jake replied without turning. "Help yourself." She poured a cup and sat across from Lily. The girl was drawing birds again, dozens of them filling the page with wings and beaks and tiny, perfect feathers. Her hand moved with surprising confidence for someone so young. "Those are beautiful," Claire said softly. Lily didn't look up, but she began to hum again, that same wordless melody. Jake brought plates to the table, bacon, eggs, bread. He sat at the head, and they ate in silence. Claire watched them, trying to understand the dynamics of this fractured household. Jake stiff and distant, avoiding his daughter's eyes. Lily lost in her own world, communicating only through song and art. Two people living in the same house, utterly alone. It was too familiar. "School starts at 8, Jake said, breaking the quiet. "I'll take you there now. Lily comes with you." "She attends school?" Claire asked, surprised. "She sits in the back, doesn't participate. But I won't leave her here alone." "Of course." Claire paused. "How many students?" 14, ages 6 to 12. Most are ranch kids. Some ride 3 miles to get there. And the previous teacher, Jake's jaw tightened, left after 2 months. Said the children were unteachable. Said Lily scared her. Scared her how? The singing, the not talking. She thought it was possession or some such nonsense. He stood abruptly. "You about ready?" Claire drained her coffee and nodded. They loaded into a wagon, Lily sitting between them, still clutching her drawing book. The morning was crisp, the sky vast and colorless. They rode in silence, the only sound the creak of wheels and the distant cry of hawks. The schoolhouse appeared on the horizon, a small wooden structure, paint-peeling roof sagging slightly on one side. A bell hung above the door. Around it, prairie stretched in every direction, interrupted only by occasional clumps of sagebrush. "It's not much," Jake said. "It's fine." He helped her down from the wagon. His hands were rough, warm through her sleeves. For a moment they stood too close, and Claire caught the scent of coffee and leather, and something else, loneliness maybe, though she didn't know if loneliness had a smell or if she was just recognizing her own. "I'll be back at 3, he said, stepping away. "Lily knows the routine." "Jake." She stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Thank you for the chance." He looked at her hand, then at her face. "Don't thank me yet, Miss Ashford. You haven't met the children." He climbed back into the wagon and drove away. Claire watched until he disappeared into the distance, then turned to face the schoolhouse. Lily stood beside her, humming softly, staring at the ground. "Ready?" Claire asked. Lily didn't answer, just walked toward the door, her bare feet silent on the dusty earth. Inside the schoolhouse smelled of chalk dust and old wood. 14 desks sat in crooked rows. A chalkboard hung on the front wall, covered in half-erased equations. Sunlight streamed through dirty windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the stale air. Claire set her bag on the desk and looked around. This was her domain now, this small broken place where broken children came to learn. She thought of Thomas, of the school he would have attended, of the teacher who would have shaped his mind. No. She pushed the thought away. Focus on now. Focus on here. Children began to arrive. They came in clusters, siblings, neighbors, friends. They stared at her with open curiosity, whispering behind their hands. Claire stood at the front, hands clasped, waiting. When the last child arrived, she began. "Good morning. My name is Miss Ashford. I'm your new teacher." A boy in the front row raised his hand. "How long you staying?" "As long as I'm needed." "Last teacher left after 2 months. A girl called out. "Said we were too wild." "Then we'll have to prove her wrong." Claire wrote her name on the board in neat, careful letters. "Let's start with introductions. Tell me your name and one thing you love." They went around the room. Names and passions blurred together, horses, fishing, hunting, baking. When they reached the back, Lily sat alone at a desk, still drawing, not looking up. "And you?" Claire asked gently. Lily's pencil stopped. The room went silent. Every child turned to watch. "She don't talk, Miss Ashford," the boy said. "She's simple." "She's not simple." Claire's voice was firm. "She's listening." She walked to Lily's desk and knelt beside her. "You don't have to speak if you don't want to, but I'd like to know what you love." Lily's hand trembled. Then slowly she turned her drawing book toward Claire. The page was filled with birds, robins, sparrows, hawks, eagles, each one rendered in exquisite detail. "Birds," Claire said. "You love birds." Lily nodded once, barely perceptible. "Then you and I are going to get along just fine." The morning passed quickly. Claire taught reading, arithmetic, basic geography. The children were rowdy, but not unkind, curious, but not cruel. They tested her boundaries, pushed back against structure, but she held firm without breaking. By noon, they'd settled into something like rhythm. During lunch, the children scattered outside to eat. Claire stayed at her desk, nibbling on bread she'd packed. Through the window, she watched Lily sitting alone beneath a cottonwood tree, feeding crumbs to a small sparrow that hopped around her feet. The girl had a gift with animals, that much was clear. The bird showed no fear, even perching on her outstretched hand. Lily smiled, the first real smile Claire had seen, and began to sing, "Fly away, little bird, fly away home." Claire's chest tightened. She looked down at her bread, suddenly unable to swallow. A knock on the doorframe made her turn. Jake stood there, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. "Didn't mean to disturb," he said. "Came to check if you need anything. It's barely noon. Had business in town. Thought I'd stop by." He was lying. She could see it in the way he shifted his weight, the way his eyes darted to the window where Lily sat. He'd come to make sure his daughter was all right. The realization softened something in Claire's chest. "She's doing fine," Claire said. "She's feeding a sparrow." Jake moved to the window. His expression, usually so guarded, cracked slightly. She used to do that with her mother. They'd sit for hours just watching birds. "You miss her, your wife." "No." The word was too quick, too hard. "I miss who I thought she was." Claire stood and joined him at the window. They watched Lily together, two damaged adults observing a damaged child, all of them trying to figure out how to exist in a world that had taken too much. "Why'd you really come west, Miss Ashford?" Jake asked quietly. "I told you, teaching position." "You're educated, refined. You could teach anywhere back east. So why Wyoming?" She was silent for a long moment. Finally, "Because out here, nobody knows who I used to be." And who was that? Someone who failed when it mattered most. Jake turned to look at her fully. "That fire you mentioned, your husband. Was there more? Claire's hands clenched. There was a son, Thomas. He was 4. The words hung between them, heavy and sharp. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "Everyone says that. Because it's true. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Sorry doesn't change the fact that I stood in the doorway and couldn't move, that I watched him burn and did nothing." "You survived." Jake's voice was firm. "That's not nothing. It's not enough. Maybe not. But it's something." Outside, Lily's song changed. "Mama's gone away." But the birds still sing. "Mama's gone away." But I remember everything. Jake flinched. Claire saw pain flash across his face, raw and unguarded. "She remembers her?" Claire asked. "Bits and pieces. Mostly through songs Sarah used to sing." He paused. "Sometimes I think the singing's worse than the silence. At least silence doesn't remind me of what we lost. Or what we failed to keep," Claire added softly. They stood together in the quiet schoolhouse, 2 people bound by the same understanding that love leaves scars, and some scars never heal. They just become part of who you are. Jake cleared his throat. "I should go. I'll be back at 3. "Jake." She stopped him again. "Thank you. For trusting me with her." "Don't thank me yet." He settled his hat on his head. "You haven't seen her nightmares." He left. Claire watched him climb into the wagon and drive away. Then she looked back at Lily, still singing to her bird, still smiling in a way she never did around adults. And for the first time since Thomas died, Claire felt something stir in the hollow place where her heart used to be. Not hope exactly, not healing, but something close, a tiny spark of purpose, fragile and dangerous. She'd come to Wyoming to disappear, but maybe, just maybe, she'd stumbled into something else entirely, something like a reason to stay. The first week passed like water through a sieve, quick and leaving little behind. Claire taught grammar and arithmetic to children who'd rather be riding horses. She corrected spelling, broke up fights, and learned that ranch kids had their own language, sharp and practical as barbed wire. Lily sat in the back every day, drawing birds and humming. She never participated, never raised her hand, never looked anyone in the eye. But Claire noticed things. The way Lily's pencil stopped when Claire read aloud. The way her humming changed pitch when the other children laughed. She was listening. She was always listening. On Friday afternoon, after the last child left, Claire found a drawing on her desk. A woman standing at a chalkboard, and beside her, a small bird perched on an open book. At the bottom, in Lily's careful script, "Teacher." Claire folded it carefully and tucked it into her Bible. That evening, Jake came to collect Lily. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable in the small space. "How'd she do?" he asked. "She's a good student, even if she doesn't show it." "She give you trouble?" "None at all." He nodded, then called over his shoulder. "Lily, time to go." The girl appeared from the back, drawing book clutched to her chest. She walked past Claire without looking, then paused at the door. Her hand reached out and touched Claire's sleeve just for a moment. Then she was gone, following her father into the fading light. Claire stood alone in the empty schoolhouse, staring at the spot where Lily had touched her. Such a small gesture, such a huge weight. She locked the door and walked the mile back to town, where she rented a room above the general store. The room was tiny bed washstand, a single chair by the window. It suited her. Small spaces were easier to control. That night, she pulled out the wooden horse and set it on the windowsill. She'd been doing this every night since Boston, a ritual of remembrance she couldn't break. She touched Thomas's name, traced each letter, and waited for the tears that never came. "I'm trying," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm trying to be useful again." The horse said nothing. The dead never did. Gil. Saturday morning, Claire woke to pounding on her door. She dressed quickly and opened it to find Jake standing there, face tight with worry. "It's Lily," he said without preamble. "She's gone." Claire's stomach dropped. "Gone where?" "Don't know. Woke up and her bed was empty. Been searching since dawn. How long? 3 hours. Claire grabbed her shawl. Where have you looked? Barn Creek, the cottonwoods by the schoolhouse. Nothing. His voice cracked slightly. She does this sometimes. Wanders off when she's upset. Usually comes back by noon, but you're scared this time is different. He nodded, jaw clenched. Then let's find her. Claire followed him down the stairs. What upsets her? Everything, nothing, I can't ever tell. He helped her into the wagon. Last night she drew something. Wouldn't show me what, just kept crying without making a sound. They drove fast, the wagon rattling over ruts. Claire held tight to the seat, scanning the horizon. The prairie was vast and indifferent, 1,000 places for a small girl to disappear. There, Claire said suddenly, pointing toward a cluster of rocks near the creek. I see blue. Jake whipped the horses toward it. They jumped down before the wagon fully stopped. Lily sat wedged between two boulders, knees pulled to her chest, rocking slowly. Her nightgown was torn, her feet bleeding. She stared straight ahead, humming that same tuneless melody. Lily. Jake dropped to his knees in front of her. Baby, what happened? The girl didn't respond. Just kept rocking, kept humming. Claire knelt beside Jake. Lily, sweetheart, can you look at me? Nothing. The humming grew louder, more frantic. She gets like this, Jake said quietly. Locks herself inside her head. Won't come out for hours. Claire studied the girl's face. She'd seen this before in Boston in the hospital after the fire. Shock. Trauma response. The mind protecting itself by shutting down. Lily. Claire's voice was soft but firm. I'm going to sing now. You don't have to sing with me. You don't have to do anything. Just listen. She began. Oh, Shenandoah, I long to see you. Jake looked at her surprised. But Claire kept her eyes on Lily, kept singing. Away you rolling river. Oh Shenandoah, I long to see you. Away I'm bound away across the wide Missouri. Lily's rocking slowed. The humming quieted. Claire reached out slowly and touched the girl's hand. You're safe. We're here. You're not alone. Lily's eyes focused. She looked at Claire, really looked at her, and then her small body crumpled. She threw herself forward into Claire's arms and sobbed deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire frame. I got you, Claire whispered, holding her tight. I got you, baby. You're safe. Jake watched them, his face stricken. She hasn't cried in 5 years, not since Sarah left. Then it's about time. They carried Lily back to the wagon. She clung to Claire the entire ride, face buried in her shoulder, still crying in great gulping waves. Claire held her and sang over and over until her voice went hoarse. At the ranch, Jake carried Lily inside and laid her on her bed. Claire followed, settling in the chair beside her. You don't have to stay, Jake said. I'm not leaving her. Miss Ashford. Claire, just Claire. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll make coffee. He left them alone. Lily's crying had quieted to hiccups. She still held Claire's hand gripped tight as a drowning person. Can you tell me what happened? Claire asked gently. You don't have to talk. You could draw it if that's easier. Lily shook her head violently. Okay. That's okay. You don't have to do anything. The girl's lips moved. She was trying to say something, struggling with words that wouldn't come. Finally, she managed one. Mama? Claire's heart clenched. You miss your mama. Lily nodded, tears streaming fresh. I know that feeling. I miss someone too. Every single day. Lily looked at her eyes, red and swollen. Her mouth formed words silently. Who? My little boy. His name was Thomas. Claire's voice stayed steady, even as her chest felt like it was splitting. He died 2 years ago. Sometimes I wake up and forget he's gone. Sometimes I think I hear him calling for me. Lily's hand squeezed tighter. But you know what helps, Claire continued, remembering the good things, the way he laughed, the songs he liked, the way he'd run to me when he was scared. She paused. Your mama sang to you, didn't she? A tiny nod. Then when you sing those songs, she's still with you. That's how love works. It doesn't leave even when people do. Lily stared at her for a long moment. Then she sat up slowly and reached for her drawing book. She opened it to a page near the back and turned it toward Claire. The drawing was different from the others. Darker. A woman with long hair walking away from a small house. Beside the house, a man and a small girl, their mouths open in silent screams, and in the woman's hand a suitcase. Your mama left, Claire said softly. And you watched her go. Lily nodded. And your papa couldn't stop her. Another nod. And you've been waiting for her to come back ever since. Lily's face crumpled again. She fell against Claire, sobbing like her heart was breaking all over again. Claire held her and let her cry. She looked up to find Jake standing in the doorway, coffee forgotten, watching them with an expression she couldn't read, grief maybe, or gratitude, or the terrible relief of finally seeing his daughter feel something after years of numbness. Lily fell asleep eventually, exhausted from crying. Claire stayed until her breathing evened out, then carefully extracted her hand and followed Jake back to the kitchen. He poured 2 cups of coffee in silence. They sat at the table, the house quiet except for the creak of settling wood. Thank you, Jake said finally. For what? For not running when things got hard. Last teacher would have been gone the second Lily started crying. I'm not the last teacher. No. He looked at her over his cup. You're not. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Claire watched the colors shift and thought about Thomas, about the last sunset they'd watched together, about how she'd promised him they'd watch 1,000 more. You said you had a son, Jake said quietly. Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. There's not much to tell. There was a fire. I got out. He didn't. The words came out flat, practiced. My husband went back in for him. Neither of them came out. Jake was quiet for a moment. How'd it start? Candle. I'd fallen asleep reading. When I woke up, the room was full of smoke. She stared into her coffee. I could hear Thomas screaming from his room. I tried to get to him, but the stairs were already burning. My husband pushed past me. He said, I'll get him. Get out. So I did. I got out. Her voice finally cracked. And I waited in the street like a coward while they burned. That doesn't make you a coward. Then what does it make me? A survivor. Jake reached across the table and covered her hand with his. You did what he told you to do. You got out. That's not failure. That's following orders when the world's on fire. Claire looked down at his hand on hers, rough, warm, solid. She should pull away. She should maintain proper distance. But she didn't. She let his hand stay, and for the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel quite so alone. I can't cry, she said. I haven't cried since it happened. Everyone thinks I'm cold, heartless. But I'm not. I can't. Maybe you're cried out. Maybe I never loved them enough to cry. That's not true, and you know it. Do I? She finally pulled her hand back. What kind of mother can't cry for her own child? The kind who's still in shock. The kind who's still fighting just to breathe. Jake's voice was firm. You're being too hard on yourself. Someone has to be. He stood and moved to the window, looking out at the darkening prairie. Sarah left because she said I was too hard, too serious, too focused on work. He crossed his arms. Said I loved this ranch more than I loved her. Did you? No, but I didn't know how to show her different. He turned back to Claire. I thought providing was loving. Thought keeping a roof over our heads and food on the table meant I was doing right by them. Didn't realize she needed more than that. Needed me to actually be present, not just physically here. She could have told you. She did. I didn't listen. He sat back down. That's the thing about loss, Miss Ashford. It teaches you all the right lessons too damn late. Claire met his eyes. Claire, if we're going to share our failures, at least use my name. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close. Deal. A sound from the hallway made them both turn. Lily stood there still in her torn nightgown, hair wild around her face. She walked straight to Claire and climbed into her lap, settling there like she belonged. Claire's arms came around her automatically. Can't sleep. Lily shook her head. Bad dreams. A nod. Want to tell me about them? Lily was quiet for a long time. Then so softly, Claire almost missed it. Fire. Claire's breath caught. You dream about fire. And Mama. And you. Lily looked up at her eyes wide and frightened. You were burning. I couldn't save you. Jake leaned forward. Lily, Miss Ashford is fine. She's right here. But in the dream she left. Like Mama. Lily's voice was barely a whisper, rusty from disuse. Everyone leaves. Claire felt something crack open in her chest. She cupped Lily's face in both hands. I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until you tell me to go. Promise. The word hit like a fist. Claire thought about Thomas, about the promises she'd made him that death had broken. About her husband who'd promised to grow old with her. About every promise that had turned to ash. But looking at this broken little girl in her lap, she couldn't lie. I promise I'll try my hardest to stay. That's the best I can offer. Lily considered this, then nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. Claire pressed a kiss to her forehead. Now, let's get you back to bed. She carried Lily down the hall, Jake following. They tucked her in together, and Claire sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers through the girl's tangled hair. Sing, Lily asked. Claire sang. Shenandoah first, then Red River Valley, then half a dozen lullabies she'd sung to Thomas. Her voice filled the small room, and somewhere in the middle of the third song, Lily's breathing evened out into sleep. Claire stood carefully, but Lily's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Don't go, she whispered, still half asleep. I'm just going to the other room. Stay. Please. Claire looked at Jake. He nodded toward the rocking chair in the corner. I'll get you a blanket. So Claire settled into the chair while Jake brought quilts and pillows. She wrapped herself up and watched Lily sleep. Watched the rise and fall of her small chest, and remembered doing the same thing with Thomas on nights when he had bad dreams. Jake paused at the door. You really don't have to stay. I know. But you will anyway. Yes. He studied her for a moment, something unreadable in his expression. You're good with her, better than I've been. You're her father. She needs you. She needs a mother. The words hung heavy between them. I can't be that. No, but you can be present. That's what she's really asking for. Jake leaned against the doorframe. How'd you get so wise about children when yours was only 4? I had to grow up fast after he was born. My husband traveled for work. It was just me and Thomas most days. She pulled the blanket tighter. You learn fast when you're the only one there to learn. He was lucky to have you. He was dead at 4. That's not luck. No, but he was loved. That counts for something. Claire didn't answer. She turned her attention back to Lily, unwilling to argue about whether love mattered when it couldn't save anyone. Jake left quietly. Claire listened to his boots on the wooden floor, heard his bedroom door close. Then she was alone with the sleeping child and her own restless thoughts. The night stretched long. Claire dozed in the chair, waking every hour when her neck cramped or her back protested. Each time she checked that Lily was still breathing, still safe. Old habits died hard. Near dawn, she woke to find Lily standing beside the chair staring at her. Morning, Claire said, stretching carefully. You stayed. I promised I'd try. Lily climbed back into bed and patted the space beside her. Can you stay here? Chair looks uncomfortable. Claire hesitated, then gave in. She slipped under the covers, and Lily immediately curled against her side head on her shoulder. They lay there as the room slowly lightened, neither speaking, just existing in the quiet together. Miss Claire. Lily's voice was small. Yes. Do you think Mama will come back? The question hurt. Claire chose her words carefully. I don't know, sweetheart, but I know your papa loves you very much, and I... She stopped, unsure how to finish. And you what? And I'm glad I met you. Lily was quiet. Then, I'm glad too. They stayed like that until Jake knocked softly on the door. Lily, you awake? We're up, Claire called. He opened the door and stopped, taking in the sight of them together in bed. Something crossed his face, surprise maybe, or longing. Breakfast in 10 minutes. After he left, Lily sat up. He likes you. Claire blinked. What? Papa, he likes you, I can tell. Lily. He smiles different when you're here, like he's not so sad all the time. That's because you're talking again. That would make any father happy. No. Lily shook her head firmly. It's you. You make things better. Claire didn't know what to say to that. She stood and smoothed her wrinkled dress. Let's get you cleaned up. Those feet need bandaging. They spent the morning together, Claire cleaning and wrapping Lily's cut feet while Jake made breakfast, then the three of them eating in a silence that felt less heavy than before. After Jake drove Claire back to town, Lily sitting between them, holding both their hands. At the general store, Jake helped her down. Thank you again, for last night. You don't have to keep thanking me. Yeah, I do. He paused. Would you consider coming for dinner again, maybe Sunday? I'd like that. Lily leaned out of the wagon. Bring your singing voice. Claire laughed, actually laughed, and the sound surprised her. I'll bring my whole self. She watched them drive away, then climbed the stairs to her tiny room. The wooden horse still sat on the windowsill where she'd left it. She picked it up and held it to her chest. I think I might be okay, she whispered to it. I think I might actually be okay. For the first time since Boston, she believed it might be true. Sunday dinner became a weekly tradition, then twice a week. Then Claire found herself at the ranch more often than not, staying after dark, to help Lily with reading, to talk with Jake about the ranch, to simply exist in a space that felt less like running and more like arriving. Lily's voice grew stronger every day. She still sang more than she spoke, but words came easier now. She told Claire about her birds, about her dreams, about the mother she barely remembered, but missed fiercely. Do you think she thinks about me? Lily asked one evening while Claire brushed her hair. I think any mother who leaves her child thinks about her every day, even if she doesn't come back. Did your little boy think about you before he died? The question should have hurt. Instead, Claire found herself smiling. Yes, I think in those last moments he was calling for me. And maybe that means I was with him in the way that matters. You were in his heart? Yes, exactly. Lily turned around. You're in my heart now too. Is that okay? Claire's eyes burned. The tears still wouldn't fall, but the feeling was there, huge and overwhelming. That's more than okay, sweetheart. That's everything. Jake watched them from the doorway, and when their eyes met, Claire saw something she hadn't seen before. Hope, fragile and terrifying, but real. That night, after Lily went to bed, Jake walked Claire outside. They stood on the porch watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. She's getting attached to you, Jake said quietly. I know. Is that a problem? Is it for you? No. He turned to face her. But I need to know. Are you staying? Really staying? Or is this just temporary until you figure out what you're running from? I'm not running anymore. You sure about that? Claire met his gaze. No, but I'm trying. That's all I can promise. That's enough. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering. You've given Lily her voice back. That's more than I could have hoped for. She did that herself. She just needed someone to listen. She needed you. His hand dropped. We both do. The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the moment she should pull back, should maintain distance, should protect herself from the inevitable hurt. But she didn't. She stepped closer instead. Jake! A scream shattered the night. They both ran. Inside, Lily thrashed in her bed, caught in a nightmare. Claire reached her first, gathering her up. Shh, baby. I'm here. You're safe. Lily's eyes snapped open. The fire. You were in the fire. It was just a dream. No. Lily grabbed Claire's face. It was real. I saw it. You were burning and I couldn't save you and... Lily. Jake knelt beside them. Look at me. Miss Claire is fine. She's right here. She's safe. But Lily wouldn't be calmed. She sobbed against Claire's shoulder, her whole body shaking. Don't leave us. Please don't leave us like Mama did. Claire held her tighter. I'm not going anywhere. You promise? Really promise? And there it was again, that impossible question. That request for guarantees Claire couldn't give. But looking at this terrified child in her arms, she made the only choice she could. I promise. On everything I have left, I promise. Lily finally relaxed. She fell asleep, still clutching Claire's dress, refusing to let go. Claire looked at Jake over her head and saw her own fear reflected back, the fear of making promises they might not be able to keep, of building something that could so easily burn. But they stayed there together anyway, holding this broken child between them, hoping their combined strength would be enough to keep the nightmares at bay. It was the closest thing to family any of them had felt in years. And it was terrifying. 3 weeks after Lily started talking again, a woman arrived on the afternoon stage. Claire was teaching fractions when she heard the commotion outside. The children rushed to the windows, and through the dusty glass she saw a figure stepping down from the coach, tall, elegant, wearing an emerald traveling suit that had no business in Wyoming. That's Mrs. Hartford, one of the older boys said. She used to be Mrs. McCallister. Claire's blood went cold. Everyone sit down, she said, her voice sharper than intended. We're not finished. But she couldn't focus on the lesson. Her hands shook as she wrote on the board. In the back corner, Lily had gone completely still, her pencil frozen mid-stroke. At 3 o'clock, Jake arrived to collect Lily. His face was gray, his jaw tight. Behind him stood the woman from the stage, Sarah McCallister Hartford, looking exactly like the kind of woman who would leave Wyoming for something better. Miss Ashford, Jake said, his voice strained. This is my former wife. She'd like to speak with Lily. Sarah stepped forward. She was beautiful in the way city women were beautiful, polished, refined, untouched by wind or sun or hardship. Hello, darling, she said to Lily. Lily pressed herself against the back wall. Don't be rude. Sarah continued, her smile faltering. It's Mama. I've come all the way from Denver to see you. You're not my Mama. Lily's voice was barely audible. You left. Sarah flinched. I know I did. I made a terrible mistake. But I'm here now to make it right. Claire moved between them without thinking. I think this conversation should happen somewhere private. And who are you? Sarah's eyes swept over Claire's simple dress, her worn boots, her wind-roughed hands. The teacher? Yes. Then this doesn't concern you. Sarah looked past her to Lily. Pack your things, darling. We're going home. This is her home, Jake said, his voice dangerous quiet. A ranch in the middle of nowhere with a father who can't even look at her without seeing me. Sarah's voice turned cold. I've remarried. My husband owns a bank in Denver. We have a proper house with servants and a real school. Lily deserves better than this. She deserves her father, Claire said. She deserves a mother who won't abandon her again. Sarah's eyes hardened. I was young and foolish when I left. I'm 32 now, ready to be the mother I should have been. 5 years too late, Jake said. Better late than never. Sarah pulled papers from her bag. I've already filed with the territorial court. I have just as much right to her as you do. Claire felt Lily's small hand slip into hers. The girl was trembling. She doesn't want to go, Claire said. That should matter. She's 7. She doesn't know what she wants. Sarah knelt down, trying to make eye contact with Lily. Sweetheart, I know you're scared, but I promise Denver is wonderful. You'll have new dresses, proper lessons, children your own age. I have Miss Claire, Lily whispered. I don't need anybody else. Sarah's face twisted. She stood slowly looking at Claire with something close to hatred. You've turned my daughter against me. I've done nothing but teach her and care for her. You've replaced me. You replaced yourself the day you walked away. The slap came so fast, Claire barely saw it. Her cheek burned, her eyes watered, but she didn't move. Jake grabbed Sarah's wrist. Get out, now. I'm not leaving without my daughter. You lost that right 5 years ago. He pulled her toward the door. You want her? Get a court order. Until then, stay away from my family. Sarah wrenched free. I already have a lawyer. Judge Morrison will hear the case next week. She looked back at Lily. I'll see you soon, darling, whether your father likes it or not. She left in a swirl of expensive perfume and bitter determination. The schoolhouse fell silent except for Lily's quiet crying. Claire knelt and pulled the girl into her arms. It's okay. We won't let her take you. She's my real mama, Lily sobbed. Doesn't that mean she gets to keep me? Jake knelt beside them. Not if you don't want to go, not if we fight. But she has a lawyer and a judge. Lily looked between them, her face streaked with tears. What do we have? Claire met Jake's eyes over Lily's head. What did they have? A grieving widower, a broken teacher, and a child who'd only just found her voice. Against a wealthy remarried woman with legal standing and social respectability, what chance did they have? We have the truth, Claire said firmly. That has to count for something. But she wasn't sure she believed it. That night, Jake paced his kitchen while Claire tried to comfort Lily upstairs. When the girl finally fell asleep, Claire came down to find Jake staring into a whiskey glass he hadn't touched. She'll win, he said flatly. Sarah always gets what she wants. Not this time. You don't know Judge Morrison. He's old-fashioned. Believes children belong with their mothers. Jake's hands clenched. Doesn't matter that she abandoned Lily. Doesn't matter that she broke our daughter's heart. She's respectable now, married to money. That's all that'll matter. Claire sat across from him. Then we make sure Lily's voice is heard. She's old enough to tell the judge what she wants. And if he doesn't listen, then we fight harder. Jake looked at her, something broken in his eyes. Why are you doing this? She's not your daughter. You could walk away. Should walk away, probably. This is going to get ugly. I made a promise. Promises break all the time. Not mine. Not anymore. Not. Claire reached across the table and took his hand. I already lost one child. I won't lose another without a fight. His fingers tightened around hers. I can't pay you. Can't give you anything but more heartache. I'm not asking for payment. Then what are you asking for? Claire didn't have an answer. Or maybe she did, but she was too scared to say it out loud. That she wanted this broken family, this hard life, this chance to be needed again. That somewhere between teaching Lily and sitting at this table with Jake, she'd stopped running and started hoping. I'm asking to stay, she said finally. However this ends, I want to stay. Jake pulled her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles rough and desperate. Then stay. God help us both, but stay. They sat in the lamplight, hands joined across the table, two damaged people trying to build something whole from their shattered pieces. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows like it was trying to get in. Or maybe trying to warn them. Storms were coming. They both knew it. The next day, Claire went to see Judge Morrison herself. His office was above the bank, dusty and cramped, and smelling of old cigars. He looked her over with the dismissive eyes of a man who didn't think much of women who spoke out of turn. "Miss Ashford," he said, not rising from his chair. "I assume you're here about the McCallister case." "Yes, sir. I wanted to speak on behalf of Lily." "That's not necessary. I'll hear from both parents at the hearing." But Lily's wishes should matter most. She's terrified of leaving her father. Morrison leaned back, hands folded over his considerable belly. Children are often frightened of change. Doesn't mean it's not in their best interest. With respect, sir, removing her from the only stable home she's known isn't in her best interest. It's trauma. Mrs. Hartford has expressed remorse for her past actions. She's now in a position to provide significantly better opportunities than a struggling rancher can offer. He shuffled papers on his desk. "A girl needs a mother, Miss Ashford. Surely you understand that." "A girl needs stability and love. Jake McCallister provides both." "And you?" Morrison's eyes sharpened. "What's your role in all this I've heard talk around town? The teacher spending an unusual amount of time at the McCallister ranch." Claire's spine straightened. "I care about my students' well-being." "Is that all you care about?" The implication hung heavy. Claire forced herself to stay calm. "My relationship with the McCallister family is entirely proper. Proper or not, it won't influence my decision." Morrison stood, signaling the conversation was over. "The hearing is Friday at 10 o'clock. I suggest you let the parents speak for themselves." Claire left, feeling like she'd made things worse. By the time she returned to the schoolhouse, word had already spread. Parents whispered as they collected their children. Someone had painted words on the school's front door. "Homewrecker." She scrubbed the paint off with shaking hands, trying not to cry, trying not to let the rage and shame overwhelm her. She'd done nothing wrong. She'd loved a child who needed loving, helped a family that was hurting. But that didn't matter to people who needed someone to blame. That evening, Jake found her still scrubbing. "Leave it," he said. "I can't. The children will see it." "Then let them see it. Let everyone see that we don't care what they think." He took the brush from her hands. "This is my fault. I should have been more careful about appearances. There's nothing inappropriate happening. I know that. You know that. But folks around here..." He tossed the brush aside. "Doesn't matter. After Friday it won't matter anyway." "Don't say that." "It's true. Sarah's going to win. I can feel it." His voice cracked. "And there's not a damn thing I can do to stop it." Claire grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me. We are not giving up. We are not rolling over. We fight until there's nothing left to fight with. You understand? Claire, do you understand?" He nodded slowly, and she saw it the moment he stopped drowning and started treading water. Not saved, not yet, but fighting. "Okay," he said. "We fight." Friday came too fast. The courthouse was packed. Half the town showed up to watch the spectacle. Claire sat in the back with Lily, who was pale and silent, her hand crushing Claire's fingers. Sarah arrived with her new husband, a portly man with kind eyes, who looked uncomfortable with the whole proceeding. She wore a navy dress that probably cost more than Jake made in a year. Jake sat alone at the front, shoulders rigid, hands clenched on his thighs. Judge Morrison entered, and everyone stood. He settled himself with theatrical slowness, clearly enjoying the attention. "This is a hearing to determine custody of one Lily Ann McCallister, age 7, he began. "Mrs. Hartford has petitioned for full custody. Mr. McCallister contests. We'll hear from both parties." He looked at Sarah. Mrs. Hartford, you may speak first. Sarah stood gracefully. Thank you, Your Honor. I won't pretend I didn't make a terrible mistake 5 years ago. I was young, overwhelmed, and suffering from what I now understand was a condition of melancholy. I left my daughter and my husband, and I've regretted it every day since. She dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Claire wanted to scream at the performance. But I've spent these years becoming the woman I should have been, Sarah continued. I've sought treatment for my condition. I've married a good man who's willing to raise Lily as his own. We can provide her with education, culture, opportunity, everything a young lady needs to become a respectable woman. And you believe Mr. McCallister cannot provide these things? Morrison asked. I believe he does his best, but a ranch is no place for a girl. She needs female guidance, proper socialization, preparation for a future that extends beyond Wyoming Territory. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. Mr. McCallister, your response? Jake stood slowly. He wasn't a man comfortable with words, and it showed. My daughter is happy. She's healthy. She's learning. She has everything she needs. Does she have a mother? She has people who love her. That's more important. Is it? Morrison leaned forward. I've reviewed the facts, Mr. McCallister. You work long hours. You leave your daughter in the care of others. You can't provide the refinements a girl her age requires. I provide stability. I provide honesty. I was there when her mother left, and I've been there every day since. Jake's voice grew stronger. That has to count for something. It does. But is it enough? Morrison looked at his papers. I'd like to hear from the child. The room fell silent. Lily's hand tightened on Claire's. Lily McCallister, Morrison called. Come forward, please. Lily didn't move. Claire leaned down and whispered, You can do this. Tell him the truth. I'm scared. I know. But you're also brave. You found your voice once. Use it now. Lily stood on shaking legs and walked to the front. She looked impossibly small standing there facing down a judge and a courtroom full of strangers. Lily, Morrison said, his voice gentler now. Do you understand why we're here? Yes, sir. You're deciding where I live. That's right. And I need to know, do you want to live with your father or your mother? Lily looked at Jake, then at Sarah, then back at the judge. My papa. Sarah made a wounded sound. Darling, please. I want to stay with Papa. Lily's voice grew stronger. He takes care of me. He listens when I sing. He doesn't leave. Your mother made a mistake, Morrison said. But she's here now to fix it. Don't you want pretty dresses and a nice house? I want my papa, and I want Miss Claire. Lily turned to look at Claire in the back of the room. She taught me it's okay to talk again. She sings me to sleep. She doesn't leave either. Morrison frowned. Miss Ashford is your teacher, not your mother. She's more than a teacher. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She's the stranger filling your head with ideas, Sarah cut in. Darling, you don't know what you want. You're confused. I'm not confused, Lily's voice broke. You left me. You left, and you didn't come back, and I cried every night for a year waiting for you. She was crying now, great heaving sobs. And now you want me back because it's convenient, because your new husband wants you to be a proper mama. Sarah looked stricken. That's not... I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have left. Lily turned back to the judge. Please don't make me go. Please. I'll be good. I'll be quiet. I'll do anything. Just please don't take me away from Papa and Miss Claire. The courtroom was silent, except for Lily's crying. Morrison looked genuinely troubled now. Miss Ashford, he called. Approach. Claire's heart hammered as she walked to the front. She stood beside Lily and the girl immediately grabbed her hand. What is your interest in this case? Morrison asked. I care about Lily's well-being. In a professional capacity. In every capacity. She's my student. She's also... Claire hesitated. She's become very dear to me. And Mr. McCallister, Morrison's eyes were sharp. Has he become dear to you as well? The question was a trap. Claire knew it. The whole room knew it. If she said yes, she'd confirm the rumors. If she said no, she'd be lying. Mr. McCallister is a good man and a devoted father, she said carefully. My respect for him is entirely appropriate. That's not what I asked. Claire met his gaze directly. My personal feelings are irrelevant to this case. What matters is what's best for Lily. And what's best for her is staying with the family she knows and trusts. Morrison leaned back. I'll take a short recess to consider my decision. He left. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Sarah stalked over to Claire, her face twisted with fury. You've poisoned her against me, she hissed. You've taken my place. I haven't taken anything, Claire said coldly. You gave it away. You're nothing. A sad little widow playing house with someone else's family. Sarah's voice dropped to a vicious whisper. Do you really think Jake loves you? Or are you just convenient? Just another woman to warm his bed and raise his child so he doesn't have to... The words hit like arrows. Claire felt Jake move beside her, felt his hand on her back. That's enough, he said. You've got no right. I have every right. I'm her mother. Being a mother takes more than blood, Claire said quietly. It takes showing up, every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. She paused. You know what I learned when my son died, that every moment matters. Every goodnight kiss, every story, every time you choose to be present instead of absent. You had 5 years of moments with Lily, and you threw them all away. You don't get to come back now and claim them. Sarah's face went white. You don't know anything about my life, about what I went through. You're right, I don't. But I know what Lily went through. I know she spent 5 years wondering why she wasn't enough to make you stay. And that's on you. Not Jake, not me. You. Morrison returned before Sarah could respond. Everyone scrambled to their seats. I've reached a decision, he said. This is a difficult case. Mrs. Hartford has made compelling arguments about stability and opportunity. Mr. McCallister has demonstrated continued devotion to his daughter. He paused. However, the child's wishes must be considered, particularly given her age and the trauma she's already endured. Claire held her breath. Primary custody will remain with Mr. McCallister, Morrison said. The courtroom exploded. Sarah cried out. Jake's shoulders sagged with relief. Lily threw herself at Claire, sobbing with joy. However, Morrison continued, raising his voice. Mrs. Hartford will be granted visitation rights, 1 week every summer and alternating holidays. This will allow Lily to maintain a relationship with her mother while preserving her current stability. Sarah was crying now, but they weren't tears of defeat, they were tears of rage. This isn't over, she said, looking at Jake. I'll appeal. I'll fight this. Then fight, Jake said quietly. But you won't win. Not against the truth. Sarah left with her husband, and the courtroom slowly emptied. Claire stood with Jake and Lily, all three of them shaking with relief and residual fear. Thank you, Jake said to Claire, for everything you said in there. I only told the truth. You told more than that. He looked at her, and she saw everything he wasn't saying. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper, something that scared them both. Lily pulled them both down to her level. Can we go home now? All of us. Claire looked at Jake. He nodded slowly. Yes, Claire said. Let's go home. They walked out of the courthouse into the bright Wyoming afternoon, and for the first time since she'd arrived, Claire thought maybe, just maybe, she'd found where she belonged. But as they climbed into the wagon, she saw someone watching from across the street. A man she didn't recognize, wearing a traveling coat and a hard expression. He tipped his hat to Sarah as she passed, and something in the gesture made Claire's blood run cold. Jake, she said quietly. "Who is that?" Jake followed her gaze and his face went pale. "Trouble. That's who that is." "You know him." "Marcus Webb, Sarah's lawyer from Denver." Jake's jaw clenched. If he's still here, it means Sarah's not done fighting. Lily pressed closer to Claire, sensing the tension. "Is the lady going to take me away?" "No," Claire said firmly, even as fear twisted in her gut. "We won't let that happen." But as they drove toward the ranch, she couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. They'd won the first round, but Sarah Hartford wasn't the type of woman who accepted defeat gracefully. And neither was her lawyer. Marcus Webb appeared at the schoolhouse 3 days later. Claire was teaching geography when his shadow fell across the doorway. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with the kind of sharp features that suggested intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. "Miss Ashford," he said, removing his hat. "Might I have a word?" The children stared. Claire set down her chalk. "Class, practice your writing. I'll be just outside." She stepped onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind her. Webb leaned against the railing, studying her like she was evidence in a case. "I represent Sarah Hartford," he said. "I believe you know why I'm here." The judge made his ruling. Judges change their minds, especially when presented with new evidence. He pulled a folded paper from his coat. "I've been conducting interviews around town. Seems there's quite a bit of talk about you and Mr. McCallister." Claire's stomach dropped. "Talk isn't evidence." "Depends on the talk." Webb unfolded the paper. "Mrs. Henderson saw you leaving the McCallister ranch at dawn 2 weeks ago. Sheriff Price mentioned you've been staying there overnight with some frequency. The general store owner noted Mr. McCallister purchased a woman's nightgown last month, something he's never done since his wife left." Heat flooded Claire's face. "I stay when Lily has nightmares. In the guest room. With the door locked." "Can you prove that? Can you prove otherwise?" Webb smiled without warmth. "I don't have to prove anything. I just have to create reasonable doubt about your moral character, about whether you're a good influence on an impressionable child." He stepped closer. "Tell me, Miss Ashford, what happened to your son?" The question hit like a fist. "That's none of your business." "It is when you're positioning yourself as a substitute mother. See, I did some research, wrote to Boston. The fire that killed your family started from a candle you left burning when you fell asleep." His eyes were cold. "Your negligence killed your child. Why should we trust you with someone else's—" Claire couldn't breathe. The words she'd told herself 1,000 times in Jake's voice, in Sarah's, in this stranger's, all confirming her deepest fear. She'd killed Thomas. She'd failed as a mother. She was dangerous. "Get off my property," she whispered. "This isn't your property. It's public land, and I have every right to be here." Webb folded the paper and tucked it away. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to distance yourself from the McCallister family. Stop the overnight visits. Stop playing house. If you don't, I'll make sure Judge Morrison hears every sordid detail of your involvement. And when he does, he'll reverse his custody decision." "Jake won't let that happen." "Jake won't have a choice." Webb settled his hat back on. "Think about what's best for Lily, Miss Ashford. Is she better off in a stable home with her real mother? Or in a ranch house with a grieving father and a woman who already killed one child through carelessness?" He left. Claire stood frozen on the porch, his words echoing in her skull. A woman who killed one child through carelessness. The thing she'd feared most, spoken out loud, given teeth. She somehow made it through the rest of the school day. When Jake arrived to collect Lily, Claire couldn't meet his eyes. "You all right?" he asked. "Fine, just tired." "You want to come for dinner tonight?" Lily's been asking. "No." The word came out too sharp. "I have papers to grade. I'll see you tomorrow." Jake frowned. "Claire, please just go." He left, confused and hurt. Lily looked back through the wagon window, her small face worried. Claire waved, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack her face in half. That night, she sat in her tiny room and stared at the wooden horse. She picked it up, feeling Thomas's name under her thumb. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't enough." For the first time in 2 years, she felt something break open inside her chest. Not tears, she still couldn't cry, but something worse. A howling emptiness that threatened to swallow her whole. She'd thought she could build something new here. Thought she could be useful, be needed, be enough. But Webb was right. She'd failed once before. What made her think this time would be different? She should leave, pack her bag, and take the morning stage and disappear before she hurt anyone else. Before Lily got more attached. Before Jake started to... A knock on her door interrupted the spiral. She opened it to find Mrs. Henderson, the boarding house owner, looking uncomfortable. "There's a man downstairs asking for you," she said. "Says it's urgent." Claire descended to find Jake pacing the small parlor. He turned when she entered, his face tight with worry. "Something happened," he said without preamble. "The barn caught fire an hour ago. Got it out, but..." He swallowed hard. "Lily won't come out of her room. She's locked herself in, and she won't talk. Won't even sing. I thought maybe you could..." "I can't." Claire backed away. "I'm sorry, Jake. I can't help her." "What are you talking about?" "Webb came to see me today. He knows about the overnights, about everything. He's going to use it against you in court." "Let him. I don't care." "You should care. He found out about the fire, about Thomas, about how it was my fault." "Claire, stop. And he's right. I fell asleep with a candle burning, and my son died because I was careless. And now I'm here pretending I can be a mother to Lily when I couldn't even keep my own child safe." Jake crossed the room and grabbed her shoulders. "Listen to me. What happened to Thomas was not your fault. It was an accident. A terrible, heartbreaking accident, but not your fault. You don't understand. I understand that you're letting some lawyer twist the truth to serve his client. I understand that you're scared. But running doesn't fix anything. It just leaves more people hurt." His hands tightened. "Lily needs you. Right now. She's terrified because the barn fire brought back memories of her mother leaving, and she thinks everyone she loves is going to disappear like smoke." "Maybe they should. Maybe I'm not." "Don't you dare finish that sentence." Jake's voice was fierce. "You are enough. You've always been enough. The problem isn't you. It's that you won't let yourself believe it." Claire tried to pull away, but he held firm. "Come with me," he said. "Please, if not for me, then for her. She's asking for you, actually using words to ask. Do you know how big that is?" Claire closed her eyes. She thought of Lily's small hand in hers, her voice singing in the darkness. The way she'd looked at Claire in the courthouse and said, "She's more than a teacher." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." They rode to the ranch in tense silence. The smell of smoke still hung in the air. The barn stood partially collapsed, blackened timbers reaching toward the sky like broken fingers. Inside the house, Jake led her to Lily's door. He knocked gently. "Lily, Miss Claire is here." No response. Claire pressed her hand against the wood. "Lily, sweetheart, it's me. Can I come in?" Nothing. Then so faint she almost missed it. "You'll leave. Everyone leaves when there's fire." The words stabbed straight through. Claire's hand trembled against the door. "I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever if you'll have me." "You promise?" "I promise." A long pause. Then the lock clicked. The door opened a crack and Lily peered out, her face streaked with tears and ash. "Mama left when the kitchen caught fire. 3 years before she really left. Papa put it out, but she just packed a bag and said she couldn't do this anymore." Claire looked at Jake. His face had gone gray. "I never told you that," he said quietly to Claire. "I'd forgotten, or maybe I tried to forget. It's why I stopped talking." Lily continued, her voice small and broken. "I thought if I was quiet enough, good enough, she'd come back. But she didn't. And now there's fire again, and you're going to leave too." Claire pushed the door open fully and knelt. "Listen to me. I'm not your first mama. I'm not going to pretend I am. But I'm here now, and I'm choosing to stay. Fire or no fire. Lawyers or no lawyers. Town gossip or no town gossip." She pulled Lily into her arms. "You're stuck with me, kid, whether you like it or not." Lily wrapped her arms around Claire's neck and finally cried. Real tears, not silent ones. Loud, messy, honest crying that shook them both. Jake knelt beside them, and without thinking, Claire pulled him in too. The three of them knelt there on the floor holding each other, while Lily cried out 5 years of accumulated grief and fear and abandonment. When the tears finally slowed, Lily pulled back and looked between them. "Are you going to get married?" The question caught them both off guard. Claire's face burned. Jake cleared his throat. "Why do you ask that?" he managed. "Because you look at each other the way the preacher says married people should. Like you're a team." Lily wiped her nose. "And I want Miss Claire to be my real mama, not just my teacher." "Lily," Claire started, "it's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because people will talk. Because your first mama might use it against us in court. Because I'm scared. Because I don't deserve this. Because I'll probably fail you the way I failed Thomas. Because we need time." Jake finished saving her. "These things can't be rushed." "But you love her, right, Papa?" Jake's eyes met Claire's. In them she saw the truth he hadn't said out loud yet. The truth she'd been too frightened to name. "Yes," he said simply. "I do." Claire's breath caught. Lily looked at her expectantly. "Do you love Papa?" the girl asked. Claire looked at Jake, this broken, beautiful man who'd given her a reason to stop running. Who'd trusted her with his daughter's heart. Who'd defended her when the whole town whispered. Who saw her failures and chose her anyway. "Yes," she whispered. "I do." Lily beamed. "Then what's the problem?" What was the problem? Webb and his threats. Sarah and her appeals. The town and its gossip. Claire's past and all its failures. The list was endless. But looking at these two people who'd become her family without her quite realizing it, none of it seemed to matter as much. "No problem," Jake said, standing and pulling Claire up with him. "No problem at all." Webb showed up at the ranch the next morning. Claire was making breakfast while Jake tended what was left of the barn. She heard horses and looked out to see Webb dismounting Sarah beside him. "Jake?" Claire called through the window. "We have visitors." He came quickly, Lily trailing behind him. They all stood on the porch as Webb and Sarah approached. "Mr. McCallister," Webb said. "Mrs. Hartford would like another chance to speak with her daughter. Supervised, of course." "No," Jake said flatly. "The court order grants her visitation. Starting next summer. Not now. She's willing to negotiate." Webb pulled out more papers. "She's prepared to drop the appeal if you agree to extended summer visits. 8 weeks instead of 1. "Absolutely not." Sarah stepped forward, her face softer than before. "Please, Jake. I just want to know her, to be part of her life. You had 7 years to be part of her life. And I'm trying to make up for that now." Sarah's voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I failed her. But she's my daughter. That has to mean something." Lily pressed against Claire's side. "I don't want to go to Denver." "Not Denver," Sarah said quickly. "Here. I could visit here. Stay at the hotel in town. Just spend a few hours with you each week while I'm here." "And how long would you stay?" Jake asked suspiciously. "A month, maybe 2. Sarah looked at Lily. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I can try to be better going forward. If you'll let me." Claire felt Lily trembling. She knelt down. "What do you think, sweetheart? Do you want to try spending time with your first mama?" Will you be there too? If you want me to be. Lily thought about it, then looked at Sarah. You left because of the fire. Because you were scared. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, I was scared of a lot of things. But mostly I was scared I wasn't good enough to be your mother. Miss Claire was scared too. But she stayed anyway. I know. Sarah's eyes filled. She's braver than I was. Can you be brave now? The question was so simple, so devastating. Sarah's composure cracked completely. She knelt in the dirt, tears streaming down her face. I can try, she whispered. If you'll give me the chance, I'll try so hard, baby girl. Lily looked at Jake. He nodded slowly, giving permission. The girl walked down the steps and stood in front of Sarah, studying her like she was a stranger, which in many ways she was. You can visit, Lily said finally. But Miss Claire has to be there, and if you leave again you can't come back, not ever. Sarah nodded, crying harder now. I understand. Thank you. Thank you so much. She reached out slowly, and Lily let herself be pulled into a careful hug. Not the embrace of mother and daughter, not yet, but maybe the beginning of something. Webb looked disappointed that his dramatic courtroom tactics wouldn't be needed. I'll draw up a new agreement, he said to Jake. Mrs. Hartford will visit twice a week for 2 months, supervised. Any violation and she forfeits all future custody claims. Fine, Jake said. But I want it in writing that she can't take Lily out of the county. Agreed. They left. Lily came back to the porch and took both Claire's and Jake's hands. That was hard, she said. The bravest things usually are, Claire replied. Do you think she'll really stay this time? I don't know, sweetheart, but if she doesn't, you'll still have us. Lily squeezed their hands. That's enough. You're enough. Claire's eyes burned. The tears still wouldn't come, but the feeling was there, huge and overwhelming and terrifying in its intensity. Later, after Lily went to play with her birds, Jake found Claire on the porch. He sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. Thank you, he said, for what you did in there. I didn't do anything. You gave her the courage to make her own choice. That's everything. He paused. What I said last night, about loving you, I meant it. Claire's heart hammered. Jake, I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but somewhere between you teaching my daughter and sitting at my table and making me remember what it feels like to want something besides just survival, I fell in love with you. He turned to face her. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking you to stay, to keep being part of this messy, broken, beautiful thing we're building. Claire looked at him, this good man who'd given her back her purpose. I'm terrified, she admitted, of failing again, of not being enough. We're all terrified. That's what makes it real. What if I can't give you children? The doctors said, I have a child. She's sitting right over there feeding sparrows and singing your songs. Jake's hand found hers. Besides, family isn't just blood. You taught me that. What if the town never accepts us? Then to hell with the town. What if Sarah changes her mind and takes Lily away? Then we fight, together. He brought her hand to his lips. What if, we could play that game forever, Claire? Or we could just live. Just be. Just let ourselves have this one good thing without waiting for it to fall apart. Claire closed her eyes. She thought about Thomas, about the fire, about all the ways she'd failed. But she also thought about Lily's laughter, about Jake's steady presence, about the way her chest felt less hollow when she was here. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Okay. I'm staying. I'm scared and broken and probably going to mess this up a dozen different ways, but I'm staying. Jake pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. That's all I'm asking. They sat like that as the sun set two damaged people choosing hope over fear, love over safety, presence over running. Inside the house, Lily sang softly to herself, a new song, not one of Sarah's old lullabies. A song that sounded like it might be about birds and fires and people who stay even when it's hard. It sounded like it might be about home. The next 2 months were strange but good. Sarah visited twice a week, always supervised, always careful. She brought gifts, pretty dresses, dolls, books that Lily accepted politely but didn't treasure the way she treasured the wooden bird Jake carved or the wildflowers Claire picked. Slowly, painfully, mother and daughter rebuilt something. Not the relationship they'd had before. Not the relationship Sarah wanted, but something real, something honest, something that might grow given time. Claire watched it happen and felt proud of Lily's bravery, felt grateful that the girl was learning early what Claire had learned too late, that you could love people and still set boundaries, that you could forgive without forgetting, that you could make space for complicated feelings without being consumed by them. The town gossip slowly died down. Mrs. Henderson stopped giving Claire suspicious looks. The parents stopped whispering at school pickup. Even the preacher nodded to her in the street. It helped that Claire moved her things to the ranch permanently. She took over the guest room, kept the door open, maintained propriety. But she was there for breakfast every morning and dinner every night. She was there when Lily had nightmares, and when Jake needed someone to talk to, and when the house needed to feel less empty. She was there. One evening in late November, after Lily was asleep and Sarah had returned to Denver for a week, Jake found Claire on the porch. The air was cold, promising winter, and she'd wrapped herself in one of his old coats. "You'll freeze out here," he said. "I like the cold. Reminds me I'm alive." He sat beside her, and they watched stars emerge in the darkening sky. After a while, he pulled something from his pocket, a simple silver ring with a small blue stone. "It was my mother's," he said. "Nothing fancy, but it's real." Claire stared at it, her heart in her throat. "I'm not proposing," Jake continued quickly. "Not yet. I know you need time, but I wanted you to have it. Wanted you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here, waiting, hoping." Claire took the ring with shaking hands. It fit perfectly on her right hand. "Jake, you don't have to say anything." "Yes, I do." She turned to face him. "I love you. I've loved you for weeks now, maybe longer. I was just too scared to admit it." His eyes widened. "Claire, I'm still scared. I'm probably always going to be scared. But I'm also tired of letting fear make my decisions." She looked at the ring, then at him. "Ask me. Ask you what? Ask me properly. Ask me now. Now." His voice cracked. "But you said you needed time." "I've had time. I've had 2 years of running and a lifetime of being afraid. I don't want to wait anymore." She took his hand. "Ask me, Jake McCallister. Ask me to stay forever." He slid off the chair and knelt in front of her right there on the cold porch with Wyoming wind howling around them. "Claire Ashford, will you marry me? Will you be Lily's mother and my wife, and the person I build a life with for however many years we get?" "Yes." The word came easy, natural, right? "Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring onto her left hand and pulled her down into a kiss that tasted like hope and healing and home. When they broke apart, they were both shaking. "We should tell Lily," Claire said. "In the morning. Tonight let's just—" He pulled her close. "Let's just be." So they sat together on the porch, wrapped in each other, and his mother's coat, watching stars wheel overhead. Inside, Lily slept peacefully, dreaming of birds and families and people who stayed. And for the first time since the fire that took everything, Claire felt something she thought she'd lost forever. She felt whole. Morning came with Lily's scream. Claire and Jake bolted from their separate rooms and collided in the hallway. Lily stood at her window, pointing outside with a shaking hand. "The birds," she sobbed. "Someone killed all my birds." They ran outside. In the pale dawn light, they found them a dozen sparrows and finches scattered across the porch necks, broken, arranged in a deliberate circle. In the center, written in ash leaf. Claire pulled Lily away, shielding her eyes. Jake knelt and touched one of the small bodies, his face carved from stone. "Who would do this?" Claire asked. "Someone who wants to scare us." Jake stood scanning the horizon. "Someone who thinks threats will work. Webb. Maybe, or someone he hired." Jake's jaw clenched. "I'm riding into town. You two stay inside. Lock the doors." Jake. "Lock the doors, Claire." He saddled his horse and rode hard toward town. Claire carried Lily back inside, the girl crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Why would someone hurt them?" Lily gasped. "They were just birds. They didn't do anything wrong." "Some people hurt things because they're angry. Because they want power." Claire held her tight. "But we're not going to let them win." "How do we stop them?" "By not being afraid. By staying." Claire pulled back to look at her. "You're scared right now, aren't you?" Lily nodded. "Me too. But being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means staying even when you are." "Is that what you did with Thomas?" The name hit like always, but Claire didn't flinch away this time. "No. With Thomas I froze. I let fear win. But I'm not going to make that mistake again." Lily wiped her eyes. "So we stay. We stay." They buried the birds together in the small garden behind the house. Lily sang over each one soft, mournful songs that broke Claire's heart. When they finished, the girl looked at the graves with fierce determination. "I'm going to get more birds," she said. "And if someone kills them, I'll get more after that, forever and ever until they give up." Claire smiled despite everything. "That's my girl." Jake returned near noon, his face grim. "Webb left town yesterday, took the stage to Denver." "Then who?" "Sarah's new husband, Mr. Hartford." Jake's hands clenched. "Bartender saw him drinking heavy last night, talking about how his wife was making a fool of herself over some ranch brat. Said he was going to handle things." Claire's blood ran cold. "Did you confront him?" "Couldn't find him. He checked out of the hotel this morning." Jake looked toward Lily, who was still at the graves. "He's trying to scare Sarah into dropping the visits. Probably thinks if we look unstable, dangerous, she'll take Lily back to Denver, and he'll have his perfect wife back." "We need to tell Sarah." "Already sent a telegram. She should get it by tonight." Jake pulled Claire close. "But until we hear back, we're on guard. I'm moving my rifle by the door. You keep Lily close." That night, none of them slept well. Claire lay in the guest room listening to every creak and groan of the house settling. Around midnight, she heard Lily's door open, then small footsteps padding down the hall. "Miss Claire," Lily whispered. "Can I sleep with you?" "Of course, baby." Lily climbed into bed and curled against her. "I keep thinking about Mama, about whether she knows what Mr. Hartford did." "Your papa sent her a telegram. She'll know soon." "What if she doesn't believe it? What if she picks him over me again?" Claire stroked her hair. "Then she's making the same mistake twice. But that's her choice, not your fault." "It feels like my fault, like I'm too much trouble." "Lily, listen to me." Claire turned to face her in the darkness. "You are not too much. You are exactly enough. Any mother who doesn't see that is blind, not right. You see it. Because I'm paying attention." Claire pressed a kiss to her forehead. "And I'm never going to stop." They drifted off together, and Claire dreamed of fire for the first time in months. But this time, she didn't freeze. This time, she ran toward the flames. Sarah arrived 3 days later without warning. Claire was hanging laundry when she heard the carriage. Sarah stepped down alone, her face drawn and her eyes red from crying. "Where is she?" Sarah asked without greeting. "Where's Lily?" "Inside with Jake." "Why are you here?" "Because my husband is a monster and I'm a fool." Sarah's voice broke. "He admitted it. Admitted he killed those birds to scare you off. Said if I didn't stop the visits, he'd do worse." Claire's hand stilled on the clothesline. What did you say? I said I wanted a divorce. Sarah laughed bitterly. Married 8 months and I'm already leaving him. Seems to be a pattern with me. Sarah. I don't want your pity. I need to see her. Need to tell her I'm sorry. Sarah looked at the house. Is she all right? She's scared, hurt, confused why someone would hurt innocent creatures to get to her. I'm going to fix this. Hartford won't bother you again. I'm pressing charges and I've already contacted my lawyer about the divorce. Sarah moved toward the door. Can I see her? Claire led her inside. Jake stood when they entered, his hand automatically moving toward his rifle. She's not here to cause trouble, Claire said quickly. I know what happened, Jake said to Sarah. Claire told me. Then you know I had nothing to do with it. Doesn't change the fact that it happened because of you. Sarah flinched. You're right. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it, for leaving, for coming back, for bringing that man into our daughter's life, even tangentially. She looked past him to where Lily sat at the table watching warily. Lily, sweetheart, can I talk to you? Lily didn't move. Are you taking me away? No. God, no. Sarah knelt where she stood. I came to tell you that Mr. Hartford and I are getting divorced. He's the one who hurt your birds, and I'm making sure he can never hurt anything of yours again. Why did he do it? Because he's cruel. Because he wanted me to stop visiting. Because... Sarah's voice cracked. Because he knew the best way to hurt me was to hurt you. Lily stood slowly and walked over. She studied Sarah for a long moment, and Claire held her breath. You're leaving him? Lily asked. Yes. Because of me. Because he hurt you. Because anyone who would do that isn't worth staying for. Sarah reached out tentatively. I know I've made terrible choices. I know I've failed you more times than I can count. But I'm trying to do better. Trying to be braver. Like Miss Claire. Yes, like Miss Claire. Sarah glanced at Claire with something that might have been gratitude, or envy, or both. She's shown me what real mothering looks like, what staying looks like even when it's hard. Lily looked back at Claire, then at Jake, then at Sarah. Can I ask you something? Anything. If you had to choose between going back to Denver and staying here near me, what would you pick? The question hung heavy. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'd stay, she whispered. If you'd want me to. I could get a room in town, find work, be here for visits and birthdays and regular days. I could learn to be the mother I should have been from the start. Jake cleared his throat. Sarah. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've already taken too much and given too little, but I'm asking anyway. She looked at Lily. What do you think, baby girl, should I stay? Lily was quiet for so long that Claire's chest began to hurt. Then the girl said, You can stay, but Miss Claire is my real mama now. You can be my other mama, the one who's learning. Sarah's face crumpled. She nodded, crying too hard to speak. And you have to promise, Lily continued. If you leave again, you can't come back. This is your last chance. I promise. On everything I have left, I promise. Lily stepped forward and let Sarah hug her. Not the way she hugged Claire, not with complete trust and abandon. But it was something. A beginning. Claire felt Jake's hand find hers. They stood together watching mother and daughter try again, and Claire thought about second chances, about how rare they were, and how easily they could be wasted. You did good, Jake murmured to her, teaching her to set boundaries but keep her heart open. I'm still learning that myself. We all are. That night, after Sarah left for town and Lily finally fell asleep, Jake found Claire on the porch again. She was crying, actually crying, tears streaming down her face in the starlight. Claire. He rushed to her. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She laughed through the tears. I'm crying. I'm finally crying. He pulled her close, and she sobbed into his chest, 2 years of grief finally finding release. She cried for Thomas, for her husband, for all the moments she'd lost, and could never get back. But she also cried for what she'd found: this family, this love, this second chance at becoming someone's mother. When the tears finally slowed, Jake cupped her face in his hands. "I want to marry you next week," he said. Claire blinked. "Next week? Next month if you need time, but soon. I don't want to wait anymore." He kissed her forehead. "Life's too short and too hard to waste time on someday. I want you to be my wife. Lily wants you to be her mama. Legal and binding and real. The town will talk. Let them talk. Sarah might object. Sarah's got no standing, not anymore. I'm still broken. So am I. So's Lily. We'll be broken together." He smiled. "Besides, you're not as broken as you think. Broken people don't cry. They don't love. They don't fight as hard as you fought for us." Claire looked at the ring on her finger, his mother's ring that she'd been wearing for weeks. "Yes," she said. "Next week. Let's do it next week." They were married the following Saturday in the small church with the whole town watching. Claire wore a simple blue dress, not white. She'd been married before and carried wildflowers Lily had picked that morning. Sarah sat in the back crying quietly into a handkerchief. The preacher kept the ceremony short, and when he pronounced them husband and wife, the whole church erupted in applause. Lily threw herself at them both. "You're really my mama now." "I've been your mama," Claire said, hugging her tight. "This just makes it official." "Can I call you Mama instead of Miss Claire?" Claire's eyes filled again. "I'd like that very much." That night, after the simple reception in the church hall, they returned home as a family. Claire tucked Lily into bed, and the girl held her hand tight. "Mama Claire?" "Yes, baby." "I'm glad God sent you to the wrong ranch that day." Claire froze. "What did you say?" "That first day you came. I saw you from my window, and I thought, God finally sent us someone who'll stay. And you did." Lily smiled sleepily. "You stayed." Claire's throat closed. She thought about that first night, about how lost and empty she'd felt, about how she'd come here planning to disappear, not to be found. "You saved me too, you know," she whispered. "I didn't know it then, but I was dying inside. And you and your papa, you gave me a reason to live again. We saved each other then." "Yes, we saved each other." Lily drifted off, and Claire sat there in the lamplight, stroking her daughter's hair and marveling at how much could change in a few months. She'd arrived in Wyoming as a broken woman running from her past. She was leaving tonight as a wife and mother running toward her future instead. Jake found her there an hour later. "She asleep. Finally. And you." He pulled her to her feet. "You ready to come to bed, Mrs. McCallister?" The name sent a thrill through her. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." He led her down the hall to their room. Not the guest room anymore, but their room. The room they'd share for all the years they had left. They stood at the threshold together, and Jake paused. "You all right?" he asked. "More than all right. I'm happy." She turned to him. "Is that allowed? Am I allowed to be happy after everything?" "You're not just allowed. You've earned it." He pulled her close. "We both have." They crossed into their room together, closing the door on the past and opening themselves to whatever came next. Winter came hard that year, but the house stayed warm. Sarah visited twice a week like clockwork, slowly building trust with Lily. She got a job at the general store and rented a small room above it. She kept her promises. Claire continued teaching, though now she rode to the schoolhouse with Jake every morning, Lily between them on the wagon bench. The children accepted her new name, Mrs. McCallister, without much fuss. Some of the parents still whispered, but fewer than before. On Christmas morning, they woke to find Sarah on their doorstep with gifts. "I wasn't sure if I should come," she said nervously. "But Lily asked me to, so—" "Come in," Jake said, surprising everyone, including himself. "It's Christmas. Family should be together." They shared a simple breakfast and watched Lily open presents. Sarah had brought a beautiful doll from Denver. Jake had carved a small bird. Claire had made a new dress, but Lily's favorite gift was the one she opened last, a leather-bound journal from all three adults, together with the first page inscribed, "For Lily Ann McCallister. May you fill these pages with your voice, your art, and your story. Love, Mama Claire, Papa, and Mama Sarah." Lily cried happy tears and hugged them all, even Sarah, who cried too. Later, while Lily played with her new things, the three adults sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly, "for letting me be part of this. I know I don't deserve it." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But Lily does. She deserves to know her mother wants her." "Both her mothers," Sarah added, looking at Claire. "I'm not trying to replace you. I know I can't. But maybe there's room for both of us." "Maybe there is," Claire agreed. "As long as we're all clear on what's best for Lily." "Always." Sarah paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you do it? How did you come in and just become what she needed when I couldn't?" Claire thought about it for a long moment. "I didn't come in trying to be her mother. I came in trying to be present, to listen, to show up." She paused. "And maybe I could do that because I'd already lost a child. I knew what it felt like to miss those moments. I wasn't going to waste the ones I was given." Sarah nodded slowly. "I spent so long running from my failures that I never learned to face them. You taught me that, both of you." She looked between them. "You taught me that staying is braver than leaving." "Then don't leave," Jake said simply. "Not again." "I won't. I promise." They sat in comfortable silence while Lily's laughter drifted from the other room. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the prairie in white. Inside, three people who'd all failed in different ways chose to build something better together. Spring came early. The prairie burst into wildflowers, and Lily spent every afternoon gathering bouquets. Sarah helped Claire plant a garden. Jake rebuilt the barn with new timber and better supports. One warm afternoon in April, Claire found herself standing at the small graves where they'd buried Lily's birds. New birds had come, dozens of them, filling the trees with song. Lily was right. Life insisted on returning no matter how hard death tried to claim space. "Mama Claire?" Lily appeared at her elbow. "What are you thinking about?" "About how things change. How we change." "Are you thinking about Thomas?" Claire smiled. "Yes, but not the way I used to. Now when I think about him, I also think about you. About how loving him taught me how to love you." "Do you think he'd like me?" "I think he'd love you. I think he'd love your songs and your birds and your brave heart." Claire pulled her close. "And I think he'd be glad I found you." "I'm glad you found us too." Lily leaned into her. "Mama Sarah said you're a gift. She said that's why she's trying so hard, because she wants to be worthy of the gift you gave her." "What gift is that?" "Hope. She said you gave her hope that people can change, that second chances are real." Claire's eyes burned with the good kind of tears. "Your mama's pretty wise sometimes." "Both my mamas are." Lily grinned. "I'm lucky like that." That night, after Lily was asleep, Claire pulled out the wooden horse she'd carried from Boston. She held it one last time, feeling Thomas's name under her fingers. "Thank you," she whispered to it, "for teaching me how to love, for showing me that even when everything burns, something can grow from the ash." She placed it in her drawer, not throwing it away, but not keeping it on the windowsill either. It was part of her story, but not the whole story. Not anymore. Jake found her sitting on their bed, staring at nothing. "You all right?" he asked. "Better than all right." She pulled him down beside her. "I was just thinking about the day I arrived here, how I'd planned to disappear, to stop mattering to anyone. And now I matter to everyone, to you, to Lily, to my students, even to Sarah in a strange way." She leaned her head on his shoulder. I came here to stop hurting. Instead, I learned to hurt and heal at the same time. That's called living. I know, and I'm grateful for it. For all of it, the hard parts and the beautiful parts and everything in between. She took his hand. I'm grateful for you. He kissed her temple. The feeling's mutual, Mrs. McCallister. They sat together as the night deepened, two people who'd both lost everything learning to hold on to what they'd found. Outside, the prairie breathed its ancient song. Inside, a family slept broken pieces fitted together, not perfectly, but strongly. Years passed. Lily grew tall and brave and never stopped singing. She became a teacher herself, following in Claire's footsteps, teaching other children that their voices mattered. Sarah stayed in town, kept her promises, and slowly became the mother she'd always wanted to be. Not Lily's only mother, but one of them, and that was enough. Jake and Claire grew old together on that ranch, watching seasons change, and children grow, and life continue its relentless, beautiful march forward. And sometimes on quiet evenings, Claire would stand on the porch and remember that first day. Remember being lost and broken, and certain she'd never be whole again. Remember a little girl who whispered, "God finally sent you to us," and changed everything. She'd come to Wyoming to disappear. Instead, she'd been found. Instead, she'd found herself. The ranch that was never supposed to be hers became home. The man who wasn't looking for love became her husband. The child who wasn't her daughter became her greatest gift. And the woman who thought she'd lost her chance at motherhood discovered that some families aren't born. They're chosen with courage and built with love and held together by the simple, radical decision to stay. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because staying is how you become real. Staying is how broken things mend. Staying is how strangers become family, and houses become homes, and women who couldn't cry finally learn to weep with joy. Claire Ashford came to the wrong ranch on a cold September day in 1877. But sometimes the wrong place is exactly where you need to be. Sometimes getting lost is how you find your way home. And sometimes when you stop running from your grief, you discover it's been running you toward grace all along. She stayed, they all stayed, and in staying, they saved each other. That's the whole truth of it. That's the story worth telling. That's how three broken people became one whole family, and how a widow who couldn't cry finally learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means loving again, despite everything you've lost. Claire had come to Wyoming with nothing but a burned wooden horse and a heart that wouldn't break. She left this world decades later with a full heart, a family who loved her, and the knowledge that she'd mattered, that she'd stayed, that she'd been brave enough to love again when everything in her screamed to run. In the end, that's all any of us can do. Stay. Love. Choose courage over comfort. Choose presence over safety. Choose to believe that even after the worst fires, something good can grow. Lily used to say that birds always come back to places that welcome them. She was right. But it wasn't just birds that returned to the McCallister Ranch year after year. It was hope. It was joy. It was the stubborn, insistent knowledge that broken things can heal if given enough time and tenderness and truth. Claire taught Lily how to be brave. Lily taught Claire how to stay. Jake taught them both that love doesn't require perfection, just persistence. And Sarah taught them all that it's never too late to try again. That second chances are real if you're willing to earn them. That being a mother isn't about biology or first claims, it's about showing up day after day, even when no one's watching and no one's keeping score. They all learned together that family is whoever fights for you. Whoever stays when staying is hard. Whoever looks at your broken pieces and says, "I'll help you put those back together." The story could end a dozen different ways, but this is how it really ends, with Claire McCallister standing on her porch at sunset, surrounded by the family she chose and who chose her back, finally understanding what it means to be home. Not a place, not a building, but a feeling. The feeling of belonging to people who won't let go. The feeling of loving so deeply that grief and joy become inseparable. The feeling of staying even when every instinct screams to run, because running is easy, and staying is how you become real. She came to the wrong ranch that day. Thank God she did. Because sometimes wrong is just right in disguise. Sometimes what breaks you is what makes room for what heals you. Sometimes the family you're meant to have isn't the one you're born into. It's the one that finds you when you've lost yourself completely. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to stay, you discover that love isn't something you find once and lose forever. It's something that returns again and again in forms you never expected, with people you never planned for, in places you never meant to call home. Claire stayed. That simple. That profound. She stayed, and in staying, she became everything she was always meant to be. A mother, a wife, a teacher. A woman who'd learned that the opposite of running isn't standing still. It's running toward love, toward family, toward the hard, beautiful work of building something that lasts. The wrong ranch, the right life. The only story that matters, the one where broken people choose each other and call it family and mean it with everything they have left. That's grace. That's redemption. That's how a widow who came to disappear instead learned to live fully, love deeply, and leave a legacy that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with choosing to stay when the whole world expected her to run. She stayed. They all stayed. And in the end, staying was everything.